God bless you, CPC. This is the day that the Lord has made. We shall rejoice and be glad in it. Once again, it's a privilege and an honor to be coming to you again on this Wednesday night to share continually about home, sweet home. Amen. We know our souls are still on fire from Sunday.
Yes, yes.
Oh my God, that was a great time, that virtual birthday celebration for the bishop celebrating 82 years. His actual birthday is today. So we just let the bishop know that we love him. We love him. Thank you all so much from our family just for loving the bishop like you love him, for caring for him like you care for him. Thank you for everybody that made a virtual video to share your love to the bishop, wishing him a happy birthday. We know he will thank you himself as well. But we want to say thank you to everyone. We're going to give a special thank you to Sister Kristen for working so diligently to put all of that together. She did an awesome job. It was outstanding. So we just thank God there is no church like Cornerstone. At the end of the day, there is no church. I don't care what y'all say. There is no church on this side of heaven like Cornerstone Pentecostal Church.
No.
Amen. And we miss y'all. We just miss y'all so much. It is our prayer that you are being safe, that you're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your family, you're staying at home, you're not going out unless it's a necessity. And we know that God is continuing to protect and watch over you. So we love you. We can't wait to see you again. But until then, we're going to do what we do virtually. Amen. So we are ready to dive into another session of Home, Sweet Home. Let's go. Tonight, we are going to shift and we are going to talk about challenges of being married. Challenges in the marriage. Hey, I don't know if you know or not, but marriages do have some challenges.
They are not perfect.
They are not perfect. It's not always a bed of roses. You know, sometimes we can talk through things and we don't want to misconstrue what really can take place in marriage. We do believe that God blesses marriages and marriage can be beautiful. And marriage is beautiful.
It is.
But we do understand that marriages do have challenges. And one of the things that's very important when marriage has its challenges, it is very important that both parties are willing to work together to work through those challenges. That is very important that both parties are willing and able to work through those challenges. Because when you have a challenge, we're just going to jump in and say this. When you have a challenge, divorce should not be your first option.
That's correct.
Just because you begin to have challenges, divorce should not and is not your first option.
Should not be throwing that word around.
Right. Should not be throwing that word around. I know a lot of people, I talk to some people and before they even get married, they're talking about, okay, if such and such happened, okay, we're going to get divorced. You can't go into it with that mindset. When you go into getting married, we're looking at this is for life. This is a lifelong commitment. And even along that vein, that's why it's very, very important in that premarital stage, even as you're dating, that you begin to be aware, and we've talked about this previously, of red flags.
That's right.
Some red flags that could happen that you just ignored before marriage. The challenges, even in the dating part, that you really ignored. It is imperative during that time frame that you are getting to know that person. If red flags come up, and you have to deal with those red flags immediately, and do not just sweep them under the rug. And that's why we are a very big proponent of premarital counseling, to get some of those issues out on the table so you can deal with some issues that may have shown themselves early in the process.
And preferably Christian counseling.
Amen. Preferably Christian counseling. So we do know, amen, brothers and sisters, married, people that's looking forward to marriage, you are going to have some challenges in your marriage. Okay, but let's just say this. All right, let's say we're already married now. We already married. We done got married and went on the honeymoon, had a great time, took a nice little trip. Everything is bed of roses. We all lovey-dovey. We speaking, we hugging, we kissing, we loving one another, going and having fun, just having a great old time. All is great. All is great. All is wonderful.
Wait a minute. That's not where you're supposed to go. I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm supposed to say something before you get into that. Remember?
Well, it really doesn't matter what you want to say. I'm talking about, hey, I'm married, it's happy, so it doesn't really matter
Right,
what you
I'm
want
just
to
saying
say.
we need to, kind of stick with our script, the things that we talked about, so that this goes smoothly. Remember, we agreed.
Well, it's going to go smoothly because I'm saying I'm doing the talking. That's why I know it's going to go smooth.
Also, what you say is what matters.
What I say is, yeah, pretty much. What I
Also,
say.
even though we're both involved in this, it doesn't matter my part and that I helped and stuff. Okay, well, that's right.
Well, it does. It matters a little bit. It matters a little bit. You know what?
I know that you think it matters a little bit.
But you know what? You shop too much.
Where did that even come from?
You shop too much.
Where did that come
I've
from?
been wanting to tell you that.
And second of all, it's my money. I can shop
No.
because I work 40 hours plus a week. Okay, do you even work 40 hours a week?
I work over 40 hours.
Oh, that's right. You self-employed.
And you know what? You make that one little chicken meal with the peppers. I really don't like that.
You know what? Once again,
I don't even like it. I've been saying I like it.
I appreciate it because I'm the one that's chopping up all of that stuff. You see, this is what I'm saying. You don't even appreciate stuff.
Okay, hold on. All right. Now you see what happens?
Go in there.
You go
Go
there.
in there. Just cutting. Just totally just stuff that should be off limits. Just, brought in all kind of other stuff.
Now, what happens now, really the purpose and the intent of that. Some of you may have thought it may have been a little comedic, but really the intent of that. A lot of times what happens in marriage, you may have a challenging situation and something comes up that you need to talk your way through, but then all of a sudden you done let stuff that has festered for years that you've never said anything about, but now the opportunity comes and now you just want to just pile on and you just want to attack the other person.
Attack, because that's what that was, clearly. You brought in stuff, we both said very cutting words, things to hurt, and stuff like that, because you get hurt and
Right.
you want to hurt others.
Right, and so that's one of the things we just wanted to begin to say. When you have issues, I know sometimes they may seem minor, but you have to deal with them when they are present.
Right, they're going to come out if you don't bring them out.
You have to deal with them when they happen, because if you let them fester, and if you let them linger, everything is going to begin to snowball, and then one thing is going to lead to another, and it's going to be a build-up, and there's going to be a big explosion, as opposed to if I would have dealt with it when I really felt that. If I had some issues prior to that, okay, go ahead and address the issue then. Don't let it fester because it just builds up.
Right.
And then you build up animosity over little situations, and it's a little, what's the word? A little leaven.
Little foxes.
Little foxes destroy the vine.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want those little foxes. So when those foxes come, you want to deal with them when they happen. Don't let them lay around. If you have something that really bothers you or something that you know needs to be addressed, but you're afraid, hey, we're in this together. We are in this together, so you have to address those issues. Do not let issues lay around and fester and build up.
Right, in order to really let go of something, you have to first deal with it.
Amen. You got to deal with it. All right. With that said, the first area we want to talk about that a lot of people have challenges with. We talked to Sister Kay that does a lot of the premarital counseling in some of the areas. She said mostly people have challenges in. The first area we're going to talk about is finances. A lot of people in marriage have challenges with their finances. Well, what is the challenge? How are we going to handle our finances?
Right.
How are we going to handle our finances? Who makes the decisions about how the money is spent or where the money is spent? How do we handle it?
Right, and despite who handles the bills, or if you do something where you assign certain bills to each other, those financial decisions about the home, they need to be made jointly. There needs to be a conversation about those.
Mm-hmm.
If it is, how we do bills this way or that way, but there needs to be a discussion. And certainly major financial decisions, major purchases, need to be discussed and agreed upon. Spending limits, right?
Right, so a lot of times, and I'm just going to break this down, there are different ways. What works in one household may not work in somebody else's household.
Yes. Yeah.
So one household, say like our household, Okay, we put our money together. And so how we came about that is, when we got married, the conversation we had, I'm just telling you how we do. And then we'll tell you the other option. So my question to my wife was, what do you need for you to just function and do whatever you want to do, don't have to worry about any bills? How much money do you need to do you? To do you. So she gave me a dollar amount. Okay, if I have this much money, I'm free, I can do whatever. You don't have to account for it. You just have this money to do whatever you want to do with it. She gave me that number. I said, okay, that's what you'll get. That's what you just get. So when she gets paid, she keeps her amount that she wants to keep, and then the rest she puts into the house. Now, all of mine, when I get paid, pretty much I put all of mine with the house. Okay? Because I have more access to that account. The account is joint. The accounts are in both names. All of our accounts are in both names, except for her fund account where she can do whatever she wants. I can be on it. I just feel like I never got on it. But anyway, so that's how we do. She has what she wants to do. So we have what we call our household account, where all the bills are paid out of that account. Everything is paid out of that account that has to do with the house. Anything that has to do with the house, bills, whatever have you, mortgage, anything, we pay everything out of that account. Now, she still has access to that account as well. So if something comes up that she needs to do, maybe she has overspent, and something has come up that she needs to do, hey, all she has to do is let me know, hey, babe, I need to do this, and she can have access to the household account. We save together. Any major purchases, we will talk through. Vacations, that's all coming from our household account, or money that we have saved. So we really put our money together. And that's how we do. We just put our money together.
And there'll be real, informal communication. If there's something higher value that, I want to purchase, before I just go and do it out of the household account, I shoot a text to you, something, and say, is this okay or something. I don't swipe the card until I get the okay, because I don't always know what that account is looking like or what he did in that account. So I don't ever assume that, because, that's just not wise to put us in that position.
Right. Now she has access to the account. She just, she's glad not to have to deal with it.
I am glad.
Yeah, she has access. She can go look at any statements anytime she wants to, but she just chooses not to do that because she doesn't want to fool with that. So,
because I trust you.
Right. And that's another area we'll talk about. So another way, that's just how we do in our household. It works well for us when we put our money together. Now, some people don't put their money together. Some people don't. They may split their bills up between each other. They may everybody keeps their own paycheck, and then they divide the bills up. If that's what works for you, you may have plans on vacation, okay? You say this much, I say that much, when it's time for vacation, we got our own money. So some people operate in that vein.
Right.
If that is what works for you, then okay, that's what works for you. So you have to see what works best in your household. If you decide to put together, I always said this previously, who's ever the less spender of the two really should be on the household account, because they're not going to spend all willy-nilly. They're going to be more conservative, make sure all the bills are paid. They're less apt to just go on a shopping spree. So they're more apt to monitor it. And I know a lot of people keep it separate because they got that mentality, my money is my money.
That's true.
Don't say nothing about what I do with my money. So I don't recommend that, but I know there has been some people that have been successful with that.
Yeah, and they make it work.
They make it work.
Though, we know that there's preferences and styles, and I'm sure there's different other arrangements that we haven't gone over. But just because it's, what's your money is kept separate from theirs, there still need to be communication.
Right.
Because you still are under the same roof, you still have things you want to do together, so you should still be talking about even the separation of it.
Right.
There should be an idea of what the other one is doing, even if you don't know the dollar amounts of what's going where. So that's one of the main things with finances, because like Edward was saying, and we're covering out of the challenges, the top 3 reasons and some others, why people have problems in marriage, go to counseling, and finances is one of them. And it is because of that lack of communication in those areas. And so then there's concerns, well, are you pulling your weight? You're not doing, so then you have that, which then leads to mistrust. So to avoid that, to avoid the appearance of, oh, well, you're withholding, you're holding back.
Right.
You're not really trying to be all in when it comes to the house, or why are we looking like we're starving over here and you just came in with a new handbag, that type of thing. So that's what happens and why there's trouble. So just because you keep your money separate, don't think you don't need to talk about it and have discussions about what gets paid, who's handling what, and where some of the money is going. Because I think sometimes that can be the impression, well, it's my money and I'm doing this, so I don't have to tell you everything that I'm doing. Every penny's not going to be accounted for. Everybody has a little play account or this or that, but you should jointly have some goals. You may want to purchase a house. You may want to plan a certain vacation. In order to do that, you have to talk about the money path that's going to get you there. Right.
And some specific areas where people can struggle in. Number one, there's no budget, or if you have a budget, somebody doesn't adhere to the budget. So there's a challenge. There's a tug and a pull. Somebody says, hey, we're trying to budget this, but the other person is not adhering to the budget. That will create some conflict.
Right, because if there is if there is an area where we need to pull more money in this area or something like that, that's why I'm saying even if stuff is separate, you still need to have a talk about that home budget.
Right. Selfish spending. When the party is more selfish, that person that wants to spend, more on themselves, they should not be the primary person over the money, but that will create conflict if there is selfish spending. The other person feel like they get the short end of the stick.
Right.
They feel like they're getting left behind. Secrets. You're keeping secrets about the money.
Keeping secrets about how it's spent. Keeping secrets about a debt that could be out there. If something happens, whether it's because you did something wrong or not, maybe you just made a mistake, or maybe there's a big bill that came up that you didn't see.
Right.
You should be talking about that. If the money is funny, both partners should know. If there's a reason that something is going on, stuff is past due, it should not be unknown to the other person.
Right.
That's how you get in trouble financially. Even if, and sometimes we do, oh, well, I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, I thought I could take care of it.
Don't work with your spouse.
Even if you think, right, bring them in. Even if you think you are taking care of it, hey, I just want you to know this is what's going on, I got it, this and that, the other, because sometimes you think you got it and something else comes. So just communicate early. Don't wait till the end. Oh, you're supposed to be handling the mortgage because that was the part you agreed to. And next thing you know, the mortgage is 60, 90 days late, and the husband or the wife doesn't know. That's not okay. Car repo, stuff like that. So at early signs of trouble, communicate that. Just talk to, hey, this is what's going on. They may have some insight that you didn't even know about, especially if you don't keep all of your money together. They could even help you out, or, in a way. They could help brainstorm or say, well, did you think about we could do this, or I can do this, I can put that in there. So just, don't be afraid to trust your spouse enough to do that. Right.
And I'm going to admit, I am biased. I am biased about people putting their money together.
Yes.
I've seen that work more than I've seen it not work.
Right, you have very good reason for that.
Just from experience.
Right, you have very good reason for that. But we do understand.
People
choose not to do that.
You're not wrong if that's what you choose. You are definitely not wrong. So I know people have had some success. Another thing could be build some tension. Child support.
That's a big financial strain sometimes.
Child support, that can build up some animosity. And that child support, at the end of the day, you have to treat that as a bill.
It should be right there in your budget.
It should be right there in your budget. And I know that can create some conflict because, you feel like that's, money going out of the house. But it is for a child that you do have.
Right.
So you just have to consider it and treat it just like a bill. It's a bill that's going to be there. And hopefully y'all have had some discussions about that prior to marriage. Even if it happened afterwards, sometimes you may have to have an adjustment. Not that you had a baby after marriage. I'm saying if the child support order came in later on in life. But you have to treat that child support as a bill and as a debt.
Including the increases in it.
Right,
Don't hide that from your spouse.
Be upfront with it. You got to be upfront with that. A tough area of challenge financially, if there's a job loss. One of the spouses, you guys rely on a 2-person household income, and one of the spouses loses their job. That can create some conflict. Now, what I would recommend in that situation is if somebody does lose their job, obviously the person that's still working, they may have to take on more of a load. They're going to have to take on more of a load, more carrying, whether it's the man or the woman. I know the man is there to provide, but if a situation happens where he loses his job, just using that example, then the woman may have to take on more of that burden because we're in this together.
Right, and that totally changes your budget.
Right.
As well.
You have to cut some things back. You have to make some adjustments when there's some income loss. You have to make some adjustments. Those of you, even on that vein, those of you that are receiving that stimulus check, but you're still working, hey, make good use of that stimulus check. If you can use that to pay down a bill or pay off a debt or save it.
Get ahead.
Yeah, get ahead of something. If you're working, don't just get it and just blow it because if you're working, it's unexpected money. Now, if you're not working and you need it, of course, you got to use it in the right vein.
Yeah.
But if you're working and you are getting that stimulus check, just do something with it. Don't just blow it all willy-nilly.
Right.
Take advantage of that particular situation. So those are some challenges that you can face on the financial. You can have financial success in marriage. You do not have to struggle. You have to have that mindset that we are in this together. Regardless if you do your money together or separate, you're still in it.
And it
together.
Doesn't matter who makes more.
Right, very important.
It doesn't matter. There shouldn't be a feeling of I'm more important or less important, or I have less say or more say because I don't bring as much money to the table. You just don't want to make your spouse feel less significant because their income they bring is different. Because income is only one way that you can contribute in a marriage. It's a very important way, no doubt. But that budget, all of that still has to go because it doesn't matter necessarily how much you make. You can make very good money and still be real broke and busted if you don't spend it well. But two should be able to go further typically. However, we know the reality is that sometimes debts exist and two people could mean more debt.
Right.
You just have to work together even on those goals too.
Now, on that vein, that's something you brought up that I really hadn't planned on. But just to touch on that a little bit, typically, and you correct me if I'm wrong, typically when there's an issue with a spouse making more money, it's because the woman is making more than the man.
Right, it's usually not a problem.
Right.
Well, actually.
I would say more often than not. The issue is if the woman is making more money.
Maybe I need to let you explain it further. What is the issue that you're talking about?
So typically what happens is, and y'all can make some comments if I'm wrong here, if the woman is making more than the man, the woman may feel like she should have more say-so how money is spent. And I think sometimes the woman could look a little down on the man because she's making more. Now, it shouldn't be that way, but she may think she is a little bit more superior because, hey, I'm the one making all the money. Now, it's typically not an issue when the man makes the money, more money.
You don't think that the man sometimes says I should have more say?
No.
And when he's making more money?
No.
See, I could see that happening.
Well, I'm saying because the majority.
That's more traditional.
Right. Because a lot of times, traditionally, the man, just how the world is, typically the man makes more money. But typically the issue is going to be, or how I view it, is if the woman is making more money, she feels a little bit, superior. And the man may even feel a little bit less than because it's not how she treats him. I think a lot of times she treats him.
Yeah, I think that sometimes a man could feel, and that would be my big concern too, is that the man feels not as adequate.
Right.
So women, just a piece of advice to you, if this is something that is hitting home for you, that dollar sign doesn't qualify how good your spouse is. It doesn't qualify. It doesn't make the measure of your husband. So if they make less than you or more than you, because there are many other ways that husband contributes. Just because his take home may be less than you, do not make the mistake of in any way demasculating him, or demeaning him, or looking down on him for that. He is contributing and he is doing what he can with the place where he is at that time. It should not be about that dollar sign. If you want to encourage him to do whatever he is inspiring to do, whatever he's aspiring to do, rather, education, whatever, to further his career, by all means, encourage him to do that. But don't make him feel like his worth is less. Don't question his self-worth because of his wallet. That's just a very tricky thing. Men are designed to lead, even if they're not doing it. And so that's why the impact of that type of language to a man is so damaging, because they are designed to lead. So if they are already perhaps feeling a little less than, you don't want to feed into that. What you instead want to feed into is that he is a contributing man, that he is still valued, that every dollar he brings in, no matter if it's more than or less than, is just as important. That's what you should be speaking into your husband.
Okay, the next area we're going to go in, but just before we go with that, just something just dropped in my mind. Now, I thought about this. I don't know if I just feel a certain way. I think a lot of times when we've gone through some of the roles, I just got a feeling that it feels like, I'm not saying it is, it feels like the woman got a lot more responsibility and a lot more she has to handle, and a lot more concessions, or a lot more that she has to do to make stuff.
As far as?
Just on everything. Because it's like, even when we talked about the roles, it's like the roles of the woman it just seemed like they were carried a lot more weight. Just how I felt. And even with the last conversation we just had.
Well, let me help you with that.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. The roles of the woman are definitely weighty. No doubt. But the man, when he's operating in his role, what does the Bible say? It talks about the woman's role is to submit to her husband. But what's the man's role? The man's role is to love his wife as he loves the church.
Right, as Christ loved the church. As
Christ loved the church. That's how the man is supposed to love and cover his wife. So how did Christ love the church? Sacrificially. He gave his life. So when we look at God's plan for the husband, and I thank God for you, because family is first with you, and we never, come second. Only to Jesus Christ does his family, come second, and me as the wife come second. So I'm thankful for that. But God has designed the husband to take on the bigger burden. He has designed the husband to give, to provide, to cover sacrificially for the family. And so that is why I can look at submission as a wife and say, okay, I'll do that. Because when I see what his plan is and what he's designed to do, it's even greater. So the man's role is great.
I agree.
When you think of the he is supposed to sacrificially putting himself to the side to cover his family. How else will you really cover your family unless you are literally throwing yourself over them, throwing, your own passions and everything that you have within you over that husband. So the fact that he has that design to cover the family, his role is just as great. And our desire and our prayer is that man operate in that. I think the reason that you are sensing that is because too many times, I think you're looking at culture. And when I look at culture, I say, wow, we definitely have a lot.
But last week when we were seeing some of the roles, some of the comments was like, well, that sounds like a lot. And it was mostly the women, so that sounds like a lot of stuff. So that's what I'm just saying. I agree what you're saying, but it just seemed like that burden or that weight for the wife got standing in the gap, carrying this and all that time. I know the man's role is to lead.
Right.
I do believe that, but at the end of the day, I just salute you women. Amen. I see
No
the
doubt,
Lord of God.
no doubt, no doubt. I really, my heart is toward women who don't have the support and that covering too. And many times what goes on is that single woman is doing all of that too. So that's where I see it at. And that's what I mean when I say we're looking at culture and we are seeing the women doing the carrying. That is not God's plan, and that's where, but we're seeing it anyway.
Right.
But we're seeing it anyway, where women are, the primary caregiver for the children and paying the bills and doing all of this stuff. And so,
Okay,
yeah.
I got you. All right.
Oh, we got a lot on us.
Right, all right.
But we
doing our part.
We believe in God for that man to take that role completely.
Okay, let's move on. All right, the second area that presents challenges in marriage, the second area we're going to talk about is trust. Trust. You are not, I'm going on a limb and say this. You are not going to have a successful marriage if you do not have trust.
Agreed.
You're not going to have a successful marriage if you do not have trust.
You can have a marriage.
But not a successful one.
Right. You can have a marriage.
A loving one.
Right. That's what you want. A peaceful marriage. You don't want a marriage that lacks peace. That lacks a true connection. So yeah, without that trust, we're talking brokenness.
Right.
There's something broken.
So the challenge is when something happens in the marriage where that trust is broken. Something happened in the marriage where that trust is broken. And I know we talked about financial challenges, but specifically, we want to begin this particular part talking about broken trust, talking about infidelity.
Right, and that could be a physical affair or an emotional affair. And that's one of the three reasons for why marriages don't succeed or why people go to counseling: finances and that infidelity, which is the deepest violation of trust that one could have. And we did say physical and emotional because we want to make it clear that is just as much a violation and that is indeed infidelity as well.
Right. So when you look at infidelity on either party, there's some things that really need to take place and for healing to come about.
Right.
When there's infidelity, can that other party, can they forgive that person?
Yeah.
Can they forgive that person? That's a tough thing. There has to be some behavioral changes.
There has to be, because the impact of adultery.
Go ahead.
It is so extreme, and it cannot be understated. It really cannot. When someone partakes in adultery, they have broken the marriage covenant. They've not damaged the marriage. They've broken the marriage covenant, and that's why one act of infidelity is enough to potentially end a marriage. I'm not saying it should or it will or it does, but it could, because so damaging is that infidelity. So deep is the level in which the trust is broken, and that cannot be understated because of how damaging that is. And so we talk about this just so that if the person who committed that act, just so they have a level of understanding of all of the ways in which trust can be broken. We just went to the heart of
Right.
We just went to the ultimate,
Right.
which was infidelity, and it is the ultimate violation of that marriage covenant.
Right. So when infidelity takes place, and we know there are biblical reasons. The Bible gives a reason for divorce when that takes place, but you do not have to get a divorce.
You do not.
You do not have to get a divorce. So like I said, the number one key is that person that has been offended, can and will they forgive the offending party when that does take place? Now, during that process, the offending party really needs to go over and above for healing to take place. That person, the offending party, has to show some accountability. You got to show some accountability for what you've done and what you are doing in your behavior. You have to be accountable for where you are,
right.
Accountable for places that you're going. You're going to have that accountability that you need to give to that spouse when you've broken that trust. There needs to be a major level, we believe, of humility.
Absolutely.
You have to humble yourself. You have to humble yourself, whether it's the man or the woman. You have to humble yourself. You cannot expect the person to just get over it because you apologized.
Right. Yeah. And so when we say humbling ourselves, what does that mean? Well, we're talking about being perhaps more transparent than what you may think you need to be, because you are reestablishing that trust that has been completely torn.
Mm-hmm.
So, if there's, more checking in that you're doing, or, if there's certain online activity or certain places you used to go, and maybe that was the direction in which the infidelity took place, then you have got to be more transparent about those things. And of course, severing those things, unequivocally severing those things.
Right.
But being more transparent, because that was the area of hurt, that was the area of pain.
Right.
And so you can't think, well, I'm grown, I don't have to. This isn't about that. This is about rebuilding trust that was wiped away. You need to rebuild it from the ground up.
Right, and you have to show an extraordinary amount of compassion to the party that has been offended.
True.
To that, you have to show an extraordinary amount of compassion, and you have to give them time to heal if you're going to work through the marriage. You have to give them time to heal, and that's just one thing I just want to emphasize. You can't be that mindset, just get over it. I'm sorry, I apologize. That's great, that's a good start, but it may take that person some time to heal and to digest.
Right, so to get over that violation of trust.
Right, and so you have to be open and honest. If they have questions that they want to ask you, let them ask, and you answer them truthfully and honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's important. If they have some questions, whatever their questions may be that they may have, you have to allow them to ask those questions, and you have to be truthful. Now, it has to be the point where you're really, really sorry, and you have no intentions of doing that again.
Right.
So it's not about just saying, hey, this is done, and I'm saying I'm sorry, but I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about going out there doing this again. You have to be in a position where you say, listen, it was a grave mistake. I am not going to do that behavior again. Then you have to give that person time to accept that and to deal with it. They will not, I underline that word, they will not get over it in your time.
True.
They're going to get over it in their time. So you have to give them time to deal with it if you are going to work through that marriage. And I believe marriages can be healed. People can be healed when that does take place, but it just may take some time to rebuild that trust that has been broken.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Amen. Yeah, I'm going to throw this down. Hey, you may have to throw yourself at their mercy. Throw yourself on the mercy of the court. Have mercy on me. That's what you may have to do. Just throw yourself at their mercy. And it's maybe a humbling. So don't get the big head. Be like, I did this and it's over. Yeah, it may not be over.
Yeah, that's being too dismissive about this level of trust that has been violated. That's why we were setting it up earlier, to get so that there's an understanding of how deep that trust has been violated. So it's not one to be dismissed like, oh, I just went and spent money and didn't tell you. No, we're talking about at the very core of trust. So yeah, that person has to be humble enough to be willing to repair what's been broken.
And so now, when that has taken place now, listen, when that has taken place, if you are the offended party and you have forgiven the person, I'm just going to say in this example, if it was the man that was unfaithful, the wife has forgiven the husband, and you have forgiven it, you have accepted back, and you are working through it. You cannot continue at that point, when you're ready to move forward, you cannot continue to hold that over his head.
Agreed.
like we did at the very beginning, start bringing up old stuff. You cannot continue to hold that over his head or her head. Just saying, this is a situation. You cannot continue to hold it over. Because that means you really haven't forgiven them and you haven't moved forward. So when you really forgiven them, you're not going to continue to let that hold over again.
Right, and that takes prayer because
It does.
of the deepness of that. So we know that God can allow us to forgive. God gives us the grace in which we're able to forgive, just like he forgave us. So if that's truly something that you want to work on and that you're working through and that you're both being very deliberate about the ways in which you can move past this and move through it to have a better marriage, you really do owe it to the marriage that you have agreed to stay in to forgive and to move on.
All right, good. So we pray if that has happened in your marriage, we pray that God will heal you, heal the both of you, and if you decided to work through it, hey, you can work through it in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Another area of challenge would be blended families.
That's
It's
a big
challenging.
one.
When families are blended, we're a blended family.
We are.
We are a blended family, so we know having a blended family can be a challenge. In one of the first area of challenge, and I want to give a shout out to Sister Reed. She called us on last week, after our session last week, and she shared something with us on last week, so we hope she doesn't mind, and we're going to share that on tonight. She talked about getting married and wondering and dating someone. Most important thing to her was, can I trust this man with my kids?
That's a very valid concern.
Yeah, okay. Even if he don't, she even said this, and I apologize if I'm wrong, but I'm sure she said, even if he don't love me to the tilt, but he takes care of these kids, I don't have to worry about him with my kids.
Yeah, she did say that. It just because her point was how he treats my kids is even more important than how he would treat me.
Right.
It meant that much to her.
So that's,
at the time.
you definitely have to consider that when you are getting married and married, dealing with the blended family. You're not trusting the kids because there's some crazy stuff going on, molestation and things of that nature. So that is a very big thing, especially, I'm going to say this, women that already have children. You better watch every move that he makes, how he talks, how he interacts. You got to be very aware of that, how they will be with your children. Because definitely has to be some trust there with your children. So that we know that can create some issues there just from the very outset with a blended family. How are we going to discipline the kids?
Right, making sure that you're in agreement on that because sometimes you don't want the other person to discipline your kids. You have that disagreement.
Right.
And that's probably not going to be okay with someone who, these kids are in my house and we have these rules and I can't enforce them on the kids. That could be a big problem, and that's why that's one of the big reasons for for challenges in the marriage.
And you really need to talk about that before marriage.
You do.
You really need to, as far as disciplining the kids. I know people that would say that is one of the main reasons they don't want to marry a woman with kids because they don't believe the woman would allow him to discipline the kids. They don't believe they'd be able to discipline the kids. And that's the first time we say, no, those are not your kids. You can't discipline them. You got problems. So no, that is something very important that you have to discuss beforehand.
It is because the children did not ask to be in this.
Right.
And so now you're going to bring someone else and now they can whip me, that type of thing. So there's ways that you need to be able to introduce your kids to this person that is now going to be the man or the woman of your life. So before, you really need to make sure that that person can connect with your kids and give time for all of that. If their first interaction with the child is a belt, that's just not really that's not a good start. So just being mindful of the kids in those situations and having all of those discussions. How can we have dates with our kids, or outings where our kids, maybe you have kids and I have kids, we can all connect, or just if I'm the only one with kids, but we all get together just so that my kid is okay with you too. So, because again, the children didn't ask to be remarried.
Right.
They didn't ask for the new person to come in. But we know adults, can still do that. So just being mindful of that whole dynamic, it really can make things more complicated, but not anything impossible or hard or difficult, because having that new parent, that can enhance things.
Right, exactly.
It's just not automatically a negative. It can enhance things. It can make your child more well balanced, but you just need to make sure that you are communicating and agreeing on what the discipline will or won't be.
Right.
Instead of once the kid goes and does something bad, and then the discipline time has come, that's when we find out.
Gotta have that discussion before.
Right.
And so the other part of that you have to consider is the kid's actual parent.
The other parent.
The other parent. So like say, hey, young lady, we're just using these examples, young lady has kids by the other guy. All right, now, you got to consider the other guy. How is he going to react? How do we bring him into the situation and discuss if he's a part of the kids' lives?
Right.
That's something you have to take consideration to that, as far as, especially when it comes to disciplining the kids. And hopefully we are adult enough where you can have those conversations between each other, or at least get an understanding of how that discipline will take place. You have to involve that other party in those decisions.
That's right.
Another challenge of a blended family is being partial.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, being partial to certain kids within the family. And because I know even Sister Reed shared, how, initially, she was so showing so much love to the new child, I was going to call the stepchildren, that it could make your natural children feel left out.
And they may not even,
that's not your intent for sure.
Right, but that's what the child is seeing. That's their experience. And so the partiality could go either way. I'm making extra effort to make sure that my stepchildren, my new bonus children, are comfortable, and I'm leaving out my natural child. Or I could be so concerned about my own natural child that I'm overcompensating with them because I know I put them in this new situation. Yeah, and I'm ignoring, so you just don't want to unintentionally pit, one parent against another child or that type of thing. Just things that could come up and you may not realize it. You may not realize that.
Right. So those are just some of the things that you have to address, because when you have blended families, you're going to have to deal with babies, mamas, babies, daddies.
Exes, yeah.
Yeah, exes. You're just going to have to deal with them. You're just going to have to deal with them. And I know a lot of times can be some tension in some of those relationships, but at the end of the day, we want to function for the betterment of the kids. And we know if that other person or parent is not in their life, okay. Hey, that other person is crazy and violent, okay. We know we avoid that. But when the situation warrants, both parents are still in the life, and then you have the bonus parents come in, it is our prayer that you can be an adult, about that and work their way through that for the betterment of the children and dealing with the blended families on there. All right. Last area that is a challenge, communication.
That's the third of the 3 reasons that marriages don't work out or go to counseling. Finances, adultery, communication.
Finances, trust, communication.
Yes.
So we just added blended families in there as well.
We did.
But communication is a very hot topic, or can be definitely a challenge in the marriage. I know one of the problems in communications is assuming.
Yeah.
You assume that the other person understands, or you assume that the other party should know as part of your communication.
Right, or you assume things don't matter, or well, they don't need to know this, or that's something that's probably not important. I didn't think it was a big deal, or sometimes we do think that it could be, but we just ignore that. So just as a precaution, it's better to over-communicate than to under-communicate. And what I mean when I say that is, if you're not sure, if you're thinking, well, I don't know, have the conversation anyway. Have the conversation anyway, because things usually come out that you didn't realize and that they needed to come out. Mm-hmm. So you just want to make sure that you are doing more. And in the blended family situation, just going back to that for a second, that's where there are more components. So there's going to be more communication going on because there are just more parties involved, especially, with the other parents and that type of thing. Another thing I would say about communication is that it can help to manage what the other person is expecting. So communication is effective, helps to manage expectations.
Right.
Meaning, okay, well, it just prevents this type of scenario. Well, I would have done this if I would have known that, or I wish you would have told me this if but I didn't know, so I didn't do that. So now I can manage what was expected because I knew this wasn't going to happen, or I knew that we, weren't going to do this at that time, or, when we talked about finances, it just helps to manage what the person is expecting, what they're looking forward to or not. And so that definitely is going to be one of those tools for more effective communication.
Exactly. Communication should not be dismissive.
Right.
Do not be dismissive in your communication. You're not giving any consideration to really what is being discussed, as if it's really not important, and what the other person has to say doesn't carry any value. So you don't want to be just dismissive and passive about what is taking place in a particular conversation, because once again, that's demeaning to the other person.
Yeah.
When you dismiss them and you almost belittle them because you're really ignoring what they have to say, like, listen, you don't know what you're talking about. So don't be dismissive in your communication and in your conversation. And another issue can be in communication. One party is just stubborn. They don't want to be in. They don't want to be in. It's my way, and it's my way. There has to be compromise in communication.
Yeah, you got to be flexible.
You got to be flexible.
If you're unwilling to bend, that is pretty much what ineffective communication looks like. One of the things that it looks like. So this always being, one-sided. And another part of that too is listening. Listening is a form of communication. The Bible says in James to be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. So we're also talking about patience as well as we listen.
Right.
But listening is something that helps us to be better communicators, because we're taking the time to take in and soak in what they're saying and respect them.
Right. And so, a good thing about communication should be open, and communication should be honest. There should be a great lines of communication and honesty. And I even stress this more even on the men's side. Because, a lot of time, men may not talk as much. But it is very important that we make the adjustments that we need to make and not shut down.
Shutting down is, that's an issue.
And not